Hey, this is Peter from Cool Cars and Hockey Cars with another episode of restoration, this time on a 1982 Mustang 5.0 GT. This project came in at just under 625 hours of labor. Customer tried to do the work himself and he was way over his head. He dropped it off on a flatbed and I started to look at it and it was obvious that there was an extensive amount of rot. The engine compartment was a complete mess and I found out that it was painted 5 times. Trying to look at the fender, you can see the 5 coats of paint there. Nothing was lined right. Even after steam cleaning, the engine compartment was a complete mess. So we had to start with the engine rebuild. Customer wanted to maintain the originality of the 5.0, so we kept a lot of the original parts, but it's obvious the bearings and everything had to go. Heads were baked, cam bearings were completely shot, even the main bearings were just worn, showed every bit of the 85,000 miles it had on it. But with some handiwork from J&L Performance on the crank, some new parts, cleaning everything up, blocked, machined, and honed, we were ready to get this baby put together. New lifters, timing chain, roller timing chain, kept the original manifold. We wanted to keep the original 2-barrel carburetor, but we did some other dress-up work just to make it look nice. Did some color coordination with the car, and he wanted to keep the original 2-barrel carburetor, so I powder-coated that gold, made it look really nice, and some custom work on the valve covers, gave it some originality. When the engine was completed, it's a gorgeous engine, even with the black coating on the air cleaner. Turning attention to the engine compartment, it was a complete mess. It was undercoated, painted, the undercoating was all over the place. The undercoating pretty much sealed in all the rust. I had to sandblast and power blast it away to start looking at it. Many things had to go with the vehicle. It's a complete mess. We needed to go back, just a basic A-frame, strip it right down to acid dip. Alarm system was useless, that had to go, and just slowly took it apart, assessing what needed to be done. The front suspension was taken apart, taken out, looking underneath the frame and underneath the A-frame members. It was just all rusted and rotten out. Manifolds were going to go. We're going to put headers in this vehicle. Had to pull out the front suspension, check through all that, and strip it right down to nothing. A lot of metal had to be replaced. After looking through all of the engine compartment and pulling away all the components and pulling out all the lines and hoses, it was obvious there was some metal that had to be replaced. Hinges were welded on, wrong position of course. There's just some of the rust in the engine compartment. That had to be all cut out, cleaned up, grind it down, replace some of the metal. The paint had to be stripped off along with the undercoating that got sprayed up into the engine compartment. Some of the metal just had to be cut out, replaced right in the engine compartment. Foot box for the driver's side was all rotten through, water coming through, so that had to be cut out. Fabricated metal, put that back in there, made it look original, got it back as clean as possible, and sealed a lot of the seams with rust protectant. Even the battery box, when we put some corrosion resistant material in there. And the mission now is to get the engine compartment painted so we can at least get it assembled. The base coat, clear coat back to the original metallic red, burgundy. Suspension was in terrible shape, broken springs. So again, parts were stripped down, sandblasted, acid etch primed, painted back to the original color, base coat, clear coat. All of the suspension components were powder coated, that cast gray. Started to put the front end together, powder coated springs, spindles, all the parts were powder coated, new bearings, bushings, sway bar bushings, powder coated the, again here's the powder coat for most of the suspension parts, powder coated the gear caliper, brake calipers, and slowly putting the engine compartment back together. Here's a picture of the floor. The floor was all rotted, cracked. There was a piece of metal screwed together holding the seat in place. It was falling apart. The underneath with all the rust coating and the undercoating on there had to be stripped away and cleaned and fixed the floor back to the original as much as possible so the underneath looked real. Most of the components were rusted and rotted right away. This is a bumper support that was completely rotted. The hatch was fixed a few times. That was a complete mess. You can see the quarter panel that was replaced. Someone did that and did a real poor job. Again, the 5 coats of paint, and someone did an absolutely terrible job with the blackout. Rear end, rusted, rotted. You can see the undercoating there. It was just a complete mess. So the entire rear suspension was taken apart. All the undercoating was stripped, gas tank, fuel line, brake lines all removed. Stripped the back end, rebuilt the rear end, sandblasted, cleaned and painted that, vacuum plates, new wheel cylinders, and here's a fresh coat of undercoat before we put it back together. Gas tank was also a mess, had to be sandblasted, and here we go. Rear end put back in. See the nice pewter powder coating on all the rear suspension components. Yellow just added a nice touch to the braking system, looked nice. Put the engine back in, started to get the engine compartment put back together, cleaned everything up and powder coated. Custom built dual exhaust. The vehicle never came with a dual exhaust, so we built a custom exhaust. Here's the engine compartment starting to come back together. Starting to do some body work again. Typical Mustang rod around the top of the windshield. You can see the opening. It was rotting out pretty good on both sides. Lucky there was enough metal there to follow along, welding the new metal in place. But it was still in really rough shape. Welded a lot of new metal in, fabricated the metal, and again all the body work was done with lead. This is a significant portion that had to be replaced. Just about had a line to follow to repair that with new metal. But once you got it in place and filled it in with lead, it looked pretty good. 5 coats of paint, chemical stripped off most of the vehicle, and then painted the windshield opening to get that in place. Starting to work on the rest of the frame. There's a little detail on the name, the ID plate. Someone replaced the quarter panel, did a really poor job there. Customer didn't want to put the money in it, so I fixed that. Here's the chemical strip on the vehicle. Used both mechanical and chemical stripping methods. The rear hatch around the roof completely rotted out. You can see the rust and the holes. That was a complete mess. The roof was almost separated from the body, but after some welding, a lot of lead work, right back to new. Now that we had that fixed, all the doors and fender, hood sent out for acid dipping. Everything came back nice and clean, nothing really bad except for the driver's door. The driver's door had significant rot around the bottom and it was falling apart, so we had to do some work on that. Had to replace the hatch. The hatch was just not fixable. So getting the body ready for a primer, starting to line things up, doing some work on the hood, getting that set up so it looked nice. The hood latch was painted 5 times, so I powder coated that, and all the hardware looked really nice when that was done. Getting the primer coat on there, starting to line up the body components, fixing the poor alignment. The hatch was from a different year, and I had to weld shut and solder lead shut the holes so that the spoiler would fit on the new rear latch. The driver's door, had to fabricate a panel for the lower part of the door. It was just too rusted to fix, so I cut the door off part and fixed a new panel on there. Here's all the parts primed, getting ready to be painted. All parts painted inside and out separately. Body was painted separately. This is the original 1982 burgundy metallic, which was a beautiful color. Beautiful color. Hood scoop again, painted 5 times, had to be stripped down to fiberglass. Door handles painted 5 times. Spoiler painted 5 times. Everything was painted 5 times. And it was a mess. It took forever to strip off all that material. Inside of the hatch was painted black to match the black interior. And here we go, putting the body together, trying to get some alignment. All the soft plastic components were soda blasted so they wouldn't get distorted. Here you can see the black inside of the hatch. Engine compartment was starting to come together. Priming and painting these soft plastic components so we can get those on for some final alignment. Starting to put the front bumper on. Air intakes on the side. You can see that taking it apart and detailing it looked a lot better. All the molding was painted 5 times as well, and that would look terrible. The red stripe through the molding was a different color, so I had to paint the stripe on the front and rear. That had to be redone manually, and you can see how the stripe continually goes around the vehicle, so I had to do that. Finished engine compartment, a lot of powder-coated parts in there, which was pretty neat. And there's the finished vehicle ready to go back to the customer. Even though it was a 2-barrel, it was fast. The underneath with the dual exhaust sounded cool, looked cool, ran awesome. Very fast. Customer was really happy with this vehicle. And again, my name, Peter from Cars and Cars. If you ever need any help or advice, like to talk to me. J&L Performance does all my engine work. I am in Lancaster, New York, if you'd like to give me a call. Thank you.